Welcome to 99th Monkey Liberty News for Thursday, October 2nd, 2014. The first article that I have this morning is from Natural News. Public trust in mainstream media plummets as readers turn to independent news sources for truth reporting. Okay, I think we all kind of know that, sense it. The people that we talk to are looking for alternative sources of news. Great. However, I am fairly convinced that one of the big topics at Bilderberg this year, and perhaps last year, was how to get alternative media to serve the ends, the plans made by the social engineers. I wouldn't go so far as to say they're throwing in the towel on mainstream media, but I'm sure they're very aware of the ineffectiveness to carry the messages. So they're going to want all of us who write video and read alternative news to come around to their way of seeing things. And in light of that idea, I'm going to dive right in here to some of the Ebola news. I'm going in head first. But I want to look at this with the idea that the social engineers, the cabal, the Illuminati, whatever phrase you understand best, they want to use you and me to propagate their message, to cause people to see things the way they want them to see things, so that their plans are achieved, so that we are a means to an end for them. So again, in light of that, I'm looking at the Ebola news because I very strongly feel that the Ebola news is all being manipulated. If it really was a secret, a pandemic, hey, we've all watched The Stand and Outbreak and all those movies, right? Typically, I'm guessing that if this whole thing was real, the whole Ebola was real and spontaneous, they would probably want to keep a lid on it. They probably would not want all this information out there. They probably would not have been releasing, really, from the beginning, every single story about, at least, one could guess it's every single story, about Ebola infections. First, the hype of how many people in Africa were sick. Then we keep hearing about the 100 to 200 health professionals who were ill, who contracted Ebola and died. Okay, is it 100 or is it 200? And we're told that they were Western, using typical sterile practices. This is Africa. It's a different climate. If you've ever traveled overseas very much, when you're in a much warmer climate, it's not unusual to contract illnesses just because exposed to different microbes. They might be more virulent in warmer and moister climates. So I don't want to get too deep into anything because I have a lot of articles and I want to do rapid fire, but I'm hoping that we won't all swallow this Ebola idea. And of course, this is from InfoWars report. Disaster teams were notified months ago they would be activated in October. And I really want to balance between looking at this Ebola thing as a hoax and looking at it as a false flag. And of course, something can both. And Jen Rappaport is presenting it as a hoax. And, as we all get all excited about this, are we forgetting the crisis actors that we saw at Sandy Hook and the crisis actors that we saw at the Boston marathon bombing, supposed bombing, alleged bombing, we haven't even really seen crisis actors. I mean, this is even a cheap wag the dog production, right? They're not going into hospitals and showing us people bleeding out their mouth and nose and ears and eyes. Whoa. If they did that they could really set the hook, right? Except that we'd recognize the crisis actors again. I'm not saying that absolutely. I'm just presenting it as what seems to be a strong possibility. And the Vatican Project, the U.S. patented the Ebola virus just as the failure of the false flag swine flu pandemic became apparent. You know, as it's sad, and of course this is their facts here. This is the Vatican Project. That's, you know, they have facts to back that up. As I was listening to Alex Jones yesterday, I kept thinking about Rick Joyner a few years ago talking endlessly, or writing, and not talking really, I didn't hear him talk, but writing endlessly about about bird flu becoming a pandemic. It never did. I mean, he basically was prophesying, and yeah, sure, maybe that was some remote, distant future, who knows. But Rick Joyner is a member of the Knights of Malta, and after I learned that, I really wondered whether he was fed his information from the Knights of Malta and presented it as prophecy. I'm not accusing him. His history of, you know, he's written some books that have very positively and powerfully impacted my life. However, these people are so insidious that they can plant ideas in people's minds, and I just hope everybody is very cautious about running over the cliff on this whole idea of Ebola. Zero Hedge presented this Dr. Board's Atlanta flight in HazMat suit to protest CDC lying. Interesting. And you know what I find most interesting is that they allowed him to pass through security dressed like this. It almost seems, this almost to me feels like a part of a hoax, like a planned presentation, a publicity stunt. There's just something about this whole thing that I have a hard time buying. Natural News has an article, "How was this not planned in advance? Ebola vaccine magically ready for human trials in weeks, not years." And I may have mentioned yesterday, there's a pharmaceutical company by the name of Tekmira. Their stocks went up, they had gone up 25%. Pretty much overnight, and then yesterday they went up even further. Now today Tekmira is down a little bit, but it all just seems so staged. It seems so for profit, so to manipulate us. And people like Benjamin Fulford and others were, you know, warned that there might be a false flag terror attack in September. Well, was it this? Was it Ebola? And of course this has been building for a little while, but you know, it really, the thing of the guy in Dallas having Ebola, the first U.S. case of Ebola diagnosed and all that, so much drama, and they're so public about it. Again, if this was real, would they be letting all this information out? And this is one thing that I do believe, and this is from the Daily Caller, and I do agree here with Louis Farrakhan. The white man created Ebola to kill black people, says noted scientist Louis Farrakhan. In some instances, this might seem reactionary to me. However, with the history of HIV, and I think it was Kathy O'Brien who said that she was with the group who took HIV into the Dominican Republic to be released in Haiti. And with the syphilis experiments done on African Americans, I think it was in the 1940s, This is simply not difficult to believe, especially considering that the social engineers are intense eugenicists. And I think I've mentioned before, I've read that, and I don't totally buy into all the alien stuff, but I've read that Aborigines and African Americans or Africans have a kind of DNA that it can tell that those races have been on the earth for a very long time, and there's some question about the DNA of some of the white races. I don't put a whole lot of stock in that. However, if the social engineers believe that, then it's logical that they would feel compelled to destroy the people who are the true heirs of planet Earth, so that they have firm claim on it. So I don't really know why they're eugenicists. I simply know for certainty that they are eugenicists, and we all know that. So, done with the Ebola, at least for the day. From Chuck Baldwin, Corruption. This is a story about an experience that his son had in Oklahoma in his work as a defense attorney. The police told the wife of someone he was defending that they should fire Tim Baldwin because the police don't like him and the system doesn't like him. It's a little bit of a long story, but well worth reading. It has a happy ending, actually. Tim found out about it and confronted people, and the police dismissed both cases against Tim's client. So, again, interesting story, well worth reading. From Washington's blog, Human Failure to Recognize, Retain, and Unleash Real Leadership, Essential Topic for the 99.99% Victory. Between right now and victory over a psychopathically evil 0.01%, a critical mass of human beings must accomplish two tasks. 1, recognize this evil clearly. 2, recognize real leadership. And what I was talking about, alternative media, there are some clear leaders who have arisen, but not a lot. And I think a lot of humility needs to be employed by many of us as leaders rise to be humble enough to follow them. And I think to some extent that can be difficult, considering how cynical a lot of us have kind of felt that we've had to become in order to sift through the lies, in order to find the truth. So at least, maybe this is at least just something to pray about. And I have a couple of articles here, videos, whatever, that are just kind of for fun. And one of them is a video, wow, 9/11 activist surrenders to police after Cameron's UN speech deemed truthers as extremists. This is just really, it's kind of amusing, kind of heartwarming. This nice older man turned himself in at Scotland Yard as an extremist who might be a potential terror threat because he believes that 9/11 was contrived. So, again, just kind of for fun. It's a 2-minute 27 video, and it's entertaining at the very least. Fritz Springmeier wrote a couple days ago about space, and I found it interesting. I have a friend who for years has been telling me that there have been bases on Mars, and that the Illuminati have all kinds of technology that they've been employing in space for a long, long time. And I've always been kind of skeptical. But for the most part, I believe that Fritz's information is good, and this is just some interesting information about, confirming bases on Mars and other very advanced technology. And turning more toward good news, I've been thinking, just considering Ebola, I've been thinking about all the plagues in the Bible. And there were many, and how at God's word, many of them ended. And one this is just a beautiful verse, Exodus 12:13. The blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you live. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and no plague will befall you to destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. So that's a nice promise. And of course, I believe in all the natural health approaches to any illness, any kind of viral infection, bacterial infection, fungal infection. But there's this layer of faith, and in something a little more recent, not a lot more recent, but when David was king in Israel, there was a plague, and it was stopped. There was an altar where David made a sacrifice, and the plague was stopped. So there's this spiritual approach to plague. If the Ebola thing really takes off, and again, I think that it's more contrived, and I believe that God certainly has the power, and I believe probably has at other times, just said no to plagues that were planned. And, maybe bird flu was released. Maybe they really thought they'd get it going, and God just said no. And certainly He can do that, and sometimes does do that. Sherry questioning all, just the consideration of faith and the impact of our faith on the world around us. I am the most powerful words in the universe. Understand, you are your I ams. Use them and create your world. And I don't mean that just as like the secret, but one reason this caught my eye, I am two of the most powerful words. That is God's name. God's name translated from the Hebrew is I am. And He is, and He rules over all. Thank you for tuning in for today's 99th Monkey Liberty News. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Hoping that you will love one another, take care, and insist on liberty.